What's going on, everyone? Yes, you're seeing it. This is Ruby Weapon, the super boss from Final Fantasy VII that gave everyone a lot of trouble and a lot of headache. And what I'm looking to do here today, or what I've done, is beta diorama. And so what I set out to do was actually reproduce this scene here. And if you remember from Final Fantasy VII, Ruby Weapon is one of the super bosses that you had to fight in one of two ways, either through the airship High Wind or through Chocobo. And when you bump into him in the sky, he pops up like this. So this is what I did. I found the 3D file on Thingiverse and essentially printed out the Ruby Weapon and also the various characters that you'll see later on. And here's me filing down or sanding down the 3D prints. Now, these 3D prints didn't originally come in this many pieces. I actually accidentally broke them into this many pieces as I was prepping it and removing all the supports. This was printed on my Elegoo Mars Pro 2. I'm by no means sponsored by Elegoo, but Elegoo, if you're watching, holler at your boy. I love the 3D printer. It's amazing. It does a lot of fantastic work. The only regret that I have is that I didn't get a bigger one because it's kind of annoying having to split up your prints because they're too big. So I had a challenge ahead of me. How was I going to put all these pieces together? So I figured super glue, right? Took a little bit of trial and error, but I essentially figured out a way to do it using paper towels to prop it up. It's not the most elegant solution, but it works. It did take some trial and error in order to get the pieces to stay in place, but I've used it now for a few other projects, and I think I got it dialed down. So I'm going to continue using it unless you guys have better ideas on how to glue pieces together and keep them in place long enough so that they form a bond. And by the way, if you're looking for the 3D design, I'll put a link to that file from Thingiverse in the description, so check it out there. Also, you'll see all of the materials I use in the description, as well as all the tools that I use in the description. So, have at it. So the next thing I did is I took apart this photo frame. It's a 3x5 frame. So what I'm doing here is taking out the backing and using that as my guide for the styrofoam that I'm going to use for my base. So here I am, just making my lines, making my cuts. And this is just your standard styrofoam that you can get from Home Depot. You get like a sheet, like a 6x4 foot sheet for like 10 bucks. So I highly recommend it. Very useful. So here I am putting my pieces in place just to get a visual of how it would look. I did lose the footage of me painting these pieces, but not to worry. I wasn't quite happy with how Ruby Weapon turned out because I hand painted it and I kind of rushed to do it before my airbrush actually. So you'll see that the characters I've chosen are Cloud, Yuffie, and Vincent. Not sure why I chose those characters, but I went with it. And as far as the tentacles go, these aren't actually part of the 3D file. I had to create these myself. They're just a bunch of pyramids that I created using my slicer. And what I did is I just cut off the top and then glued them all together and formed their tentacles. So what I'm doing here next is I wanted to get rid of that styrofoam top texture, and I believe I saw this in a Captain Millet video. Shout out to her, she's a legend for dioramas on YouTube. I learned a lot from her channel, so if you aren't subscribed to her channel, go ahead and subscribe to her. She's an amazing resource. Also creates a lot of great content, a lot of amazing stuff from her channel. So what I want to do here is just roll around this ball of aluminum foil on top of the styrofoam just to break up that texture, give it a more natural look. So I realized I wasn't quite happy or satisfied with how that looks. I want to get more natural looking and more uneven surface. So I went ahead and took out my Dremel, excuse me, and started creating divots and kind of pockets and kind of valleys on the surface to give a more natural look, more realistic and natural look. So after I was done with that, I went ahead and used some sandpaper to kind of get rid of all of the extra little frilly little danglers hanging about, give it a more smooth surface, so that when I went forward to painting, they weren't just in the way, all of that debris. Next, what I wanted to do is lay down some rocks and also some sand to give it more earthy texture, more realistic texture. So in order to do that, I painted on a layer of Mod Podge. So here's me laying down some rocks and gravels. I actually had this from my plant keeping hobby. So during the COVID period, picked up a lot of plants, and I just had this left over, so great way to repurpose that. Now here's me adding sand. So this is not your average sand. I couldn't think of a place to buy a small amount of sand except for aquarium shops, because I used to keep aquariums. And the place that I got the sand from, this is actually live sand. So I had to actually dry it out because it came in a wet bag. But it's actually really cool. It comes with like crushed corals. There's some coral bits, some shells in there. So it gives it a really neat effect. A lot of different textures, shapes, things like that, and colors. So I'm really quite happy with that purchase and using this for kind of desert scene. After I was done, I just shook off the excess sand and then try to add on, fill in all the gaps a little bit more towards the edges. After wiping down the rim, I went ahead and sprayed some IPA, or isopropyl alcohol, just to clean it up. And then next what I did is I sprayed it down with some watered down diluted Mod Podge. I actually got this trick from Captain Millet. It's, from what I understand, it's supposed to be like a 3-to-1 solution, but this is a little bit more watered down. It's probably more 5-to-1. It works just great. So the idea is to really get all those loose granules, sands and rocks and pebbles to stick so that they're not moving around as a final product. And so you'll see here next is I'm going to repaint my ruby weapon. But first I wanted to mask off his little tentacle legs that actually go down into the sand. I was actually happy with that space gray metallic base coat that I have on him initially, and so what I wanted to do on top was add a little bit more dimensional color to him with a nicer, smoother dark red. This is my first time using the airbrush, and so I did notice that, you know, there's some spots where the paint ran. So some good lessons here, you know, trying not to be so close with the airbrush, giving it a more even spray. But overall, I'm quite happy with how it turned out. So here's me super gluing on my pieces onto the diorama. Excuse me for the poor angle. There you go, that's a lot better. So in the game, when you're fighting Ruby Weapon, he does this really annoying move where he does this whirlwind thing where he removes your characters one by one until you're down to one. So the hack around that is to start your game with your 2 players already dead. That way he will essentially put his tentacles into the ground and he won't use that whirlwind move. And then after which you can revive your characters and really give it a fair shot. So it wouldn't be, you know, 3-to-1, it would be a fair 3-to-3 fight. So this is what I was kind of going after. Poor Yuffie, poor Vincent. So I realized that my figure, his arms are a lot longer than his body, and so what I needed to do is add some rocks, some gravel to where he was standing to kind of make an even surface for him. So there's me doing that. Now time for the tentacles. Really happy with how the tentacles turned out. I think they look really nice and realistic compared to how it looked in the game. So next what I wanted to do, and what I realized is, if you look at the sides, it's a little bare and unpleasant to look at. So what I wanted to do next was give it the same effect as you see on the surface. So I wanted to first mask off the frame and then hit it with some Mod Podge, and also then sprinkle some sand on top. So after I had a chance to dry, I was removing the masking tape, and I realized it's a little bit tough. So this layer of sand formed a crust essentially on the top. So what I had to do was essentially score the edges here in order to get a good peel. I thought I was definitely going to ruin this diorama when I was at this process, but fortunately it worked out really well. I didn't break anything, so very happy. So after I peel off all the layers, I didn't notice that there's still some spots that where you can see, the raw white styrofoam. So I want to go ahead and go in and paint those spots with some paint. And as you can see, I'm not the most precise painter. I made a real mess. So I realized that I needed to mask off my frame again in order to paint the rest of it. So that's me doing this. But overall, very happy with the results. And then at the end of this, I realized I had all this extra paint laying around from the size. So I thought, why not just add some touches here and there, get a little bit more dynamic look, different colors, so it's not so monotone. So I went and did that. And I kept going and added some different colors to the mix, and I was very happy that I did this. It looks a lot more dynamic, more realistic, a lot of different colors, shades, and kind of really brings it to life. So after I was done painting, I hit it with some IPA again. just to kind of help bleed in those colors a little bit, clean it up. So after letting all that dry and then removing the masking tape, another lost footage, really sorry about that. But overall, really happy with how it turned out. Thank you so much for watching this to the end. If you enjoyed the content, please subscribe to see more content like this I'll create. I have some more videos that I have in mind I'm going to create. Definitely Emerald Weapon. Another scene I'm going to create is the Tiny Bronco Rocket Town Getaway. So really excited about that. I'm also going to be doing some other stuff, you know, Star Wars, video games. So stay tuned. Please subscribe. If you like the video, leave a like. Also, if you have suggestions of other videos that I should create, other scenes that I should create, please let me know in the comment section. I'd also like to hear from you guys, your experience with Ruby Weapon. Were you able to beat them right away? Were you like me, where you had to wait until there was a YouTube tutorial that was released in order to figure out how to beat them? Overall, I had a lot of fun doing this. It was just one of those memorable experiences from my childhood that I was able to kind of bring back to life, and it was very fun for me. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.